Ever since version 42 came out, Apex Predator has been really kind of an odd card with very, very interesting passives that gives it great potential. What is the math behind it now that it's finally been changed once again? Marillus Action is a game and screen recorder that offers the lowest megabytes per frame, the lowest computer resource usage, and the highest FPS recording. Check the link in the video description to learn more. Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a Paragon Guide. I am Sylphin, where we are taking a look at Apex Predator. We always start off with the TLDR, and essentially guys, it's now a basically straight up caster card costing 7 intellect, 13 power, more power than before, and ability armor instead of attack speed. You gain power whenever you damage enemy hero, and once you reach max stacks, you gain even more ability armor. Essentially, when you crunch the numbers and start looking at everything, it's a below average card when you rush it around the 9-11 minute mark compared to other 7-8 cost cards, but very, very quickly, 4 to 5 minutes later, around the 13-16 minute mark, depending on when you first get it, Apex Predator has more power than a 10 to 13 attribute point cost card, but less armor. When it's fully completed, potentially around the 16 minute mark, probably a little bit later, it is one of the highest ability armor cards in the game, while also giving you enough power to almost include the actives and passives of those very high cost cards. So essentially, it's a below average early game power and armor card, but it very, very quickly increases through striking enemy heroes, making Apex Predator a well above average mid game power card, because basically it peaks in the mid game, basically becomes a 12 to 13 attribute point cost power card, including those passives and actives around the 16-18 minute mark, depending when you get it and how fast you can stack it. And of course, if you can strike an enemy frequently in the mid lane, perhaps in the solo lane, maybe even in the 2v2 lane, I don't know, it might be a quick method of unlocking huge power card with great ability damage mitigation through that ability armor. That was the TLDR. What is the math to support that? What's the line of thinking? How do we get to that conclusion? And what are some other things that I can tell you about Apex Predator? Like I said before, it's changed. It was a 2 vitality, 5 intellect growth card. It's now 7 intellect, so maybe leaning more towards straight up damage. But part of the confusing part for me is that it includes ability armor through all intellect. I think that is kind of blurring the lines between the affinities, in my opinion, but c'est la vie. It's a great ability armor card as well. 13 power, you get a little bit more power, but it stacks less. Before, it could stack up to 40 times. Now it's only 30 with the same power per tick. So it nets less power than before, but much more ability armor. 24 ability armor than before, but now it's 36 total ability armor. When we take a look at hero hits versus power versus ability armor, and then the total power that the card grants you, and then the minimum time, because the internal cooldown has been changed from 4 seconds to 3 seconds, there is a minimum time in minutes here, shown here, to get these stacks. And it's actually pretty insane. So for 2 hero hits, you gain 1.5 power, and you have 18 ability armor right when you equip the card until it's fully stacked, giving you a total power of 14.5 within a 0.2 of a minute, which is the minimum time you can do that. 10 hero hits, 7.5 additional power, 18 still sitting at 18 ability armor, for total of 20.5 total power in 1 minute flat. That's the minimum time. So you're Naked Scorch and you always have your passive on, and it's always proccing Apex Predator, for example. By the time we max out Apex Predator here, with 30 ability hits, gaining us 22.5 additional power on top of the base kit, we have 36 ability armor now that we've maxed it out. 35.5 total power from Apex Predator in 3 minutes flat. That is absolutely insane. 3 minutes of constantly proccing Apex Predator is the minimum amount of time it takes to do that. Absolutely insane. However, you might be like, well, what was the total power you could get before? And that was 40 power. So they have reduced the maximum power Apex Predator can give you by only by 4.5, but the ability armor increased substantially from 24 to 30. 6. When we take game time into account and just reality, using what I think is a fair amount of times you can hit a hero per minute when you can actually get Apex Predator. If you just rush straight into intellect, what's a time that you can equip it, and then what's a reasonable amount of times you can hit an enemy hero per minute? What does that look like? And that's this. So this is game time here on the left, 9 to 11 minute mark, depending on how your laning phase goes, how much power, how much gold you can get to get it. Well, 9 to 11 minute mark-ish, and then from there you have hero hits. I say 4 hero hits a minute. Maybe some minutes it was more, some minutes are less because you die, or the enemy hero's not in lane, or stuff like that, versus the power that you get from those hero hits, all the way up for the ability armor here that maxes out here around the 15.5 minute mark, was where you can total hits from before. So the total power again is at 35.5. It's kind of right in here, right around the 15.5 minute mark is kind of where I would say you could theoretically max out Apex Predator. That is really quick. So ability armor, that's fantastic. You can get 36 ability armor. What does that actually look like? Well, it's a lot of ability armor. That's Unbroken Spirit level of ability armor. Even more, I think Unbroken Spirit's only 32 or something like that. It's a lot of ability armor, and what does that actually mean to you? Well, we can take a look at ability armor versus the damage mitigation that you get from that ability armor versus a mitigation delta from having Apex Predator and not having it. Base ability armor for all heroes is 30, meaning you mitigate 23% of all ability damage, period, without even having to equipped ability armor. Penetration obviously reduces that mitigation, increasing the damage that you take. When you equipped Apex Predator, granting you 18, you have a total of 48, meaning that damage mitigation is actually 32.43%, increasing your mitigation by 9.36%. That's all right. 10% damage mitigation certainly is quite nice. When you complete Apex Predator, giving you 36 ability armor, well, that you now have a total of 66 ability armor, meaning damage mitigation 39.76%, meaning 16.68% of all ability damage is mitigated further beyond your base armor. And that's pretty darn good. 40%. You just don't even care about 40% of ability armor. That's pretty good. Now, what does that actually look like in numbers from an ability? Well, we've gone with Gideon here. He's still around a lot. Faye is a lot too. I could have maybe used her, but Gideon, he was very familiar previous this patch, so he's very fresh in people's minds. What's a Gideon? Cosmic Rift plus Void Breach plus Atomic Soldier damage increase with 60 power equipped and level 15, so all max level abilities. Cosmic Rift with all of that added in deals 625 damage. Void Breach 427 for well over, what is that, 1050 damage. Well, through base armor, that is reduced here to around 900 or so, meaning you get 242 damage mitigation just for your base armor, and that's what you're going to normally see. That's still a lot. 800 damage, or almost 900 damage. Youch. But if you equipped Apex Predator plus the 18 ability armor, well, now that Cosmic Rift, instead of 480 through your base armor, it's now 422, and etc. The Void Breach, instead of 328, it's now 288, meaning you get 341 ability damage mitigation from that, and plus the 36 when Apex Predator is fully complete, it's 418 damage, which starts to really be substantial. Like, going from 900 damage to only 700, that's pretty good, or whatever that is, about 600. So that's really good. That can really add up, especially with all the other heroes, you know, on the map, a caster heavy composition perhaps, or just all the stuns that are in the game now dealing ability damage. That's really going to help. So 36 ability armor really adds up to being a lot of damage mitigation. If you guys want, you can pause the video here, take a look at the comparable cards that I've made a list here of what they do, how much power they have, how much health and armor, and then the pluses is my way of kind of saying Apex Predator is going to be is going to need to be a lot more than just this power here because of their passives and actives. Something like Swamp Stalker, obviously when that passive is active, it's going to deal much more damage than the equivalent of 13 power. So that's what those pluses are. Arcane Dancer, for example, with that amazing active, it's going to act like a lot more than 205 health, etc., etc. So you guys can pause here, take a look, and just kind of familiarize yourself with the other cards in the game to kind of understand why I state what Apex Predator is like or better than further on. So as you can see, again, Apex Predator is below average for power and health as other 7 and 8 attribute cost cards, and you know what, that's fair because it grows into some pretty insane potential, and that's kind of the trade-off. You know, you get the card, maybe it's worth a little less when you first get it, but you're banking on the ability of it growing, and it can grow very fast. 4 to 5 minutes later, around the 13 to 16 minute mark perhaps, Apex Predator is more power than a 10 to 13 attribute points cost power card. That's insane. But it has less armor. When it's fully completed, however, around the maybe 16 minute mark, 18, 19 minute mark, it's one of the highest ability armor cards in the game. Really going to help with a lot of stuns and ability armor that is present in the meta today, while also giving power that might match 10 to 13 attribute point cost actives and passives. So obviously it's not going to equate to something like Red Zone, but a lot of the other cards out there, it may, depending on the hero and how you can utilize the additional power Apex Predator provides you, it could very well equal some of those actives and passives way up there. So some conclusions. Basically, Apex Predator is a below average early game power and armor card. If you're already behind in the match, maybe Apex Predator is not the one you want to equip, even if it really quickly grows. If you're already behind, maybe it's not the best card. Power can very quickly increase, making Apex Predator an above average mid-game power card. So maybe if you do have an advantage already, putting Apex Predator on can even compound that advantage even more. Apex Predator becomes a 12 to 13 cost card, essentially including those passives and actives, around the 16, 18 minute mark in my estimation, which is really, really quick. And you can actually use the attribute points you didn't spend on Apex Predator to actually equip a 12 to 13 attribute point cost power card. So you can basically have two 12-point cards or 13-point cards at the same time without actually spending those attribute points, which I think is the true value of Apex Predator. You don't have to spend the money, but you get that potential in return. Depending if you can strike enemies frequently, Iggy Scorch is really good at that. Apex Predator might be a quick method of unlocking a huge power card with great ability damage mitigation. Somebody like the Fae who can poke somebody, even Wraith who can snipe somebody really frequently, may use this card very well. The ability armor I think is fantastic for a lot of the crowd control that's in the game that is usually followed up with a lot of ability damage or burst to take down people that are crowd controlled. Apex Predator, really solid card. Let me know down in the comments if you guys think it's pretty much mandatory on a lot of people. I think it is. Like, it's really, really powerful, really well suited to the meta. Let me know down in the comments what you guys think. Patreon allows creators to offer their fans a way of supporting them and what they do. With flexible and painless payment options, anyone can support their creator for as little as $1 a month. If you would like to help me do what I love, check out the link in the video description to learn more. Please like this video if you like it, dislike it, share it with the community, of course. Guys, subscribe if you guys like this content, especially if you found it useful. I just tweeted my schedule here for December. It's looking really good with a lot of cool content and guides coming out. So especially if you found it useful, hit that subscribe button so I can help you out in the future. Please check the video description for links to my website, merchandise store, Amazon affiliate link, different ways you can help out the channel, as well as all my social media right here. Till next time, like always, stay optimistic, guys, and positive.